podcast. It is Sunday night, March 7th. We are exactly 7 days away from having a bracket. The next time that you guys are listening to us at this time, during this recording, we are going to be talking about an actual real live 68 team bracket. I am fired up for it. March officially started this week. You know, we got to get some conference tournament games. We got some automatic bids. We had some teams playing their way in on the bubble. Michigan State, some teams maybe playing their way off the bubble. Maryland. We have a West Virginia game that we're going to have to talk about. I'm going to have to force Da'Sean to talk about. But before we get into all of that, let me introduce my co-host, the one and only Da'Sean Butler, former West Virginia All-American, current co-host of the Dauster and Da'Sean podcast. Dave, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm good, bro. Nothing much. Just tons of family time today on this Sunday. So that's probably the most time I've gotten a chance to spend at home in a couple of weeks. So I enjoyed it. Watched some good basketball.
Yeah, it was.
Kids.
I didn't get a chance to watch as much as I wanted. Like I had the TVs on and everything.
Yeah.
But my daughter turned 2 today, so we had.
Oh, congratulations!
Party thing. I ate a bunch of cake. I made these big ass burgers. I call them Mondo burgers. So we had a little bit of a socially distanced kind of celebration thing. Her grandparents both got their shots.
Okay.
So they're all vaccinated, so they were able to come over to the house. My wife got
there we go. That's dope.
Almost done. I'm so far down the list on Jersey for when I'm going to be able to get a shot. Man. I need this Johnson & Johnson one to come through because right now it's like if you're not a frontline worker, if you're not 65 or older, if you don't have asthma, or you're not a chronic smoker, or you're not a teacher, then it's basically like don't even bother trying.
You're wasting your time.
Yeah, like you ain't getting it. So I'm gonna need this Johnson & Johnson one shot deal to come through, so I might be able to get myself vaccinated at some point in my life.
Make sure I pass the testing. Make sure you pass the testing, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. All right, so we got quite a bit to get through today. We're definitely going to talk about Michigan State beating Michigan. We got to touch on Maryland's loss and how embarrassing that was for them. And of course, we got Oklahoma State's win at West Virginia. We got to talk about Ayo and Illinois. I'm going to turn in a UConn reference at some point, and then we're going to give you our All-American teams, our Player of the Year, our postseason awards. We're going to do all that fun stuff. But before we do, I just wanted to open the floor for you, Da'Sean. You have a little bit different perspective, obviously, of the Greg McDermott situation and what happened there than I do, and I just wanted to give you a chance to say your piece, say what you had to say, and then we can kind of move on from there.
Honestly, there's some things you just don't need to say, period. And concerning the Greg McDermott thing, I saw a statement that one of his assistants put out. Obviously, he wasn't for what was said, and a ton of the players weren't as well. But the players seem to be more forward thinking and making sure they can keep the team together so they can, finish out the year the right way, which is great. I salute the players and the staff. And just to leave it at this note, sometimes you do a better job just coaching the basketball game and taking care of your players, making sure your players are doing the right thing rather than trying to be a philosopher and try to make things sound good to motivate your guys. You just be better off just coaching.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
That's really just kind of sums it up. The big thing is I hope that they can all end up on the same page. My understanding is there's a little bit of maybe a fracture is the wrong word, but
it's just awkwardness now. It's
just awkwardness. And it's also not every play. We saw Marcus Zagorowski come out and make a statement on Saturday that basically supported Greg McDermott. But my understanding is that not every player on the roster has the same opinion and necessarily totally agrees with Zagorowski, which is understandable. When you have 12 or 15 people in a locker room, not everyone is always going to believe the same thing. There are going to be individuals that have believe one thing. It kind of is what it is. So my only hope is that they find a way to get through this and just kind of play well, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's what you want for these student athletes. It's been a hell of a season. It's been brutal. They've had to isolate. They've had to do all these different things. They didn't get March last year. I just it sucks if this would ruin their March for this season. So I really hope that Greg McDermott saying something really, really stupid is not the kind of thing that's going to ruin what should be the best time of the season.
Especially now looking at the Big East where it's wide open, especially with the Villanova scenario with Gillespie. And then the timing of this, it just leaves the conference even more open for in the conference tournament.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, let's move on because that's I don't know. I don't really want to dive into that. Me and Good talk about that plenty on the morning live streams that we do. So, all right, so we're definitely going to talk about the stuff that happened on Saturday. We have to get into all of that. There was a lot that happened and a lot that we have to break down. But before we do, I do want to dive in a little bit to this Michigan State-Michigan game. How worried are you about Michigan at this point? They've now lost 2 of their last 3. They didn't look great, or I'm sorry, 2 of the last 4. They didn't look great in any of them. They've all of that momentum they had coming off of the pause seems like it kind of has gone away a little bit. At the same time, they played 3 games in 6 days, 2 straight games against the same opponent. One of that opponent happened to be a rivalry game. The last 2 weeks, Michigan State has won 3 games against top 10 opponents. So it's not like this was necessarily the most ridiculous string of occurrences. So where do you stand on Michigan at this point?
I'm still in with Michigan. At the end of the day, like watching the game, it was funny. We had the talk on our locker room. We're talking about ways that you can stop Michigan, and I mean they kind of made Smith and not as much Brooks because he wasn't chucking up shots, but they kind of made Smith and other guys beat them rather than letting Dickinson and Franz do all of the work. They made it very difficult for those guys, and not to mention we talked about Smith and Brooks being able to, well, more or less, we just talked about Michigan being able to stop good guards on the other end. And Rocket Watts was just toward the end of the first half and with his scoring, and then going into the second half, obviously with his scoring and playmaking for everybody on the team, like he did everything. Not everything, not by himself. I mean, obviously he had some help, but he was amazing today.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Michigan is always going to end up being, it's always going to come down to the guard play for me. And the fact that Eli Brooks went out with, I think it was an ankle injury. Did he roll? I think he rolled his ankle.
Yeah, he sprained his ankle.
So, I mean, obviously that's going to be huge for them long term. They don't have a ton of backcourt depth, and not having him there is going to hurt. But I honestly took more away from this about Michigan than I did, about Michigan State than I did about Michigan. Look, I've kind of said it all along. I bought into it a little bit, and I'm kind of mad at myself that I went away from what my initial sense was. But I do think that Michigan is not quite at the same level as Baylor and Gonzaga. And I know we have this argument all the time and whatever, but it's the fact that their guard play is not as good as those other teams' guards are, and they are a little bit limited up front. I keep going back to that, and I'm tired of making the same point over and over again. But to me, this had a lot more to do with what this Michigan State team can be. We're seeing the team that we thought was going to be a top 15 team because Aaron Henry has spent the last 3 weeks playing like an All-American. Rocket Watts, what he was tonight, he had, let me make sure I got this right. He had 21 points, 4 boards, and 4 assists. That's what we thought he was going to be all season long. When they beat Illinois the other night, he had 15 points and 5 assists. Like, that's what we thought he was going to be all season long. And in the interim, in the 5 games or in the 4 games between these 2 games, he had 16 points. He had 1 game where he went scoreless in a win against Indiana. When they got blown out at Maryland, he was 2 for 7 from the floor. When they got blown out at Michigan, he was 3 for 8 from the floor. So you see the good and the bad with Rocket, but you can see how good they can be when you get good Rocket Watts. And to me, that's kind of the frustrating part about watching and following this Michigan State team. I'm sure that the Spartan fans feel the same way. But I'll leave it at this. I would not want to be. I think this win puts Michigan State into the NCAA tournament, regardless of what happens in the Big Ten tournament, because they get Maryland in the first round. That's not going to be a bad loss. It's going to be a quad 1 opponent. So I think that they're in the tournament regardless of what happens. You add 3 top 10 wins to your resume in the last 2 weeks of the season, you're going to jump a lot of people in the pecking order. Yeah, I mean, imagine being a 5 seed, right? And seeing Michigan State. Yeah, that's brutal. Absolutely sucks. Brutal. I can see them being a team that makes it. I can see them getting to the second weekend if they get good Rocket Watts, and if they get, like, imagine being Virginia and the team that you draw in the first round, after you win the ACC regular season title, you get a 5 seed, and this team you draw in the first round of the NCAA tournament is Michigan State.
Tom Izzo and Michigan State.
Tom Izzo with Aaron Henry and Rocket Watts playing well. Rough. It's rough.
This are the wrong in the afterlife.
Yeah, and it could end up happening. So, yeah. That's. I mean, I'm not too worried about Michigan long term, but again, like this was the things that we were talking about all season long, I think are starting to come to fruition, and
yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at.
I mean, young guards. I mean, the young guards, like Rocket just went through basically any type of like they started out the season hot and then got extremely cold, and just seeing him be able to bounce back toward the end of the season where it matters most is very important for Michigan State. So
yeah, and look, and to put it into context, I think it's safe to say that Baylor is officially back, right? After losing to Kansas and after struggling with Iowa State, all they did was in the span of a week was go into West Virginia and beat West Virginia, beat a streaking Cade Cunningham, and then run Texas Tech off the court on Sunday afternoon. Maceo Teague, 35 points, 10 threes.
Yeah, that was an amazing performance.
He was like 10 for 11. It was like unbelievable performance. Like they're fully back, man. Like those guards. Here's the perfect comparison for me to kind of put all of this stuff into context, right? The third best guard that the third best guard on Baylor's roster went for 35 points tonight against the top 20 team and one of the better defensive teams in the Big 12. The third best guard on Gonzaga is either a starter from the SEC in Andrew Nembhard, who was a McDonald's All-American, or Joel Ayayi, who's going to end up playing for the French national team at some point in his career and will probably play in the NBA. Like I don't even know who the third best guard necessarily would be considered from Michigan. So that's kind of the context I want to put all that in. But look, long story short, Baylor's back, bro.
Yeah, man, they look back. They look good. You know what I was really impressed with is like just looking at the stats of the game. Texas Tech didn't even shoot that bad. Like they had a solid shooting night. Terrible from the free throw line, but like for the most part, they had a solid shooting night. But man, Baylor was just relentless, keeping certain people from scoring. I mean, Mac McClung could not get going. It almost like seemed like the guards got too physical and made sure that he couldn't even get a good look period tonight. Which, I mean, if you kind of keep Mac out of play, the other guys did well for the most part. Except, I mean, Santos Silva didn't really. I know that kind of hurts when, and I know for him especially, just like transferring in, thinking it's going to be a good, just as good situation as he had the year before, and then it just not panning out that way. But like him and Mac McClung having bad nights didn't really help Texas Tech at all, especially when they got deep into that second half, because it looked like it was close for a second, and all of a sudden it was just like within a 5-minute span, it was a done deal. Like they were up like in the teens, and it's over.
Yeah, you know, to your point, you mentioned the good shooting. I do think that the one kind of hangover we've seen from the pause that Baylor has had is that they're not defending as well as they used to. Like the rotations to me are still not quite as crisp as they've been, and I think they're giving up more driving lanes. Like when you play that whole that no middle defense with the exaggerated help, the anticipated help. Yeah. For people that don't know, like what Baylor does is they get up on the high side of you and they force you to drive baseline. And since they know where you're going to drive, like they send the help to the charge spot, like to the block on the other side of the rim as soon as you put the ball on the floor. So they're waiting for you as soon as you dribble. When that one guy rotates to go get into the help side, you got the other guy dropping to the baseline to cut off the pass to the corner. So like their rotations are like this as soon as you put the ball on the floor because they know exactly where you're going. So what they're going to try to make you give up is that when you're driving hard to your right hand, the one-handed live dribble pass cross court to the opposite wing. And if you can hit that pass, like, okay, great. Like you're an NBA guard. You're one of probably like 6 guards in college basketball that can make that pass right now. So that's when I say the no middle defense and the overhelp, like that's what they do. And I just think that the rotations have been a little slow. They've been they've given up straight line drives a little bit easier. And I'm sure that'll come back with time, but it's just something that I've noticed. Like, I don't know if you've picked up on that as well.
I mean, yeah, I kind of just seeing them gradually get back from the pause. I mean, you can pick them apart, but they're starting to sew some things up. so to speak, with their defense has gotten obviously better since coming back from that. And the shooting, it was one of the first things I came back, I noticed. And they don't look as tired. Like I watched the West Virginia game. I feel like that was the game that kind of like, ignited them a little bit.
Yes.
Like that was like a push for them. Like, and they win that game on the road, and then they come out here, and the way they played today was just phenomenal. So
yeah. So
yeah, I don't see too much of a lag. I mean,
speaking of West Virginia, they lost on Saturday at home to Oklahoma State. So I'm gonna allow you to say what you got to say about your Mountaineers, and then I can talk a little bit about Oklahoma State because I could not be more impressed with Mike Boynton and what he's doing with that team.
Yeah, just like I believe I text you. I might have texted you during the game talking about Coach. Like that's an amazing job to go in there and beat West Virginia, who's fine, no problems at the moment, and you're down two of your best ball handlers and players. Like that was an amazing game. Avery Anderson played out of his mind. I was disappointed that our guys, we lacked the energy to do certain things in the game, it looked like. And a team who doesn't have their best players decided to step up and get the extra loose balls and get those offensive rebounds and box out and get extra possessions and beat the Mountaineers at home. I mean, and we talked about consistency before with as far as defensively and offensively, and also just offensively individual players being a little bit more consistent. You started to see a little bit of that going into the second half of that game. So,
yeah,
I mean the better team won.
It really stood out to me. Just kind of like the effort plays, the things that you always just take for granted that West Virginia is going to do. The ones that really stood out was there was probably 4 offensive rebounds in the second half where that Oklahoma State got after the ball hit the floor, right? Like that should, to me, that should be unacceptable. If you're the defensive team, 4 different times the ball hits the floor and the other team gets the offensive rebound, like that should not be something that happens.
Nah.
There were at least 3 times that I noticed where West Virginia just completely failed to get back in transition against Oklahoma State, and that's like, again, that's an effort thing. Those are the things that you can control. To me, you can't control Sean McNeil happening to have an off night and Derek Culver not playing his best because of something that Oklahoma State does defensively, or Miles McBride like making a couple of silly turnovers on entry passes, right? Like those are the things that are going to happen during the course of a game and happen over the course of a season and happen as a result of something that Oklahoma State does defensively.
Yeah.
What you can control is whether or not you get back in those transitions, whether or not you get to those loose balls first, the hustle stuff, the effort stuff. And to me, that wasn't there for West Virginia. And it was a little bit jarring to see that happen. That's not the West Virginia that I've come to expect out of a Bob Huggins team. So yeah. I am sure, and you can probably attest to this, I am sure that is getting run out of them this week.
Yeah, I'm sure something is. To agree with you, that's just not what you would consider a Bob Huggins team's MO to be. And well, we know what their MO is, and the effort they showed, it didn't seem like that was the case. And it was a big night. I kind of feel it was big for West Virginia actually to win a game while they're in the top 10, which is something like they got close to about like 2 or 3 times this season, and then they fall out of the ring because they lose a game when they get near the area. So you have that scenario. We have Coach Huggins' 900th win, and you have one of the guys, and Derek Culver is getting 1,000 points, and an opportunity of a 3 seed for the NCAA tournament as well. Like, being one of those top.
Look, I thought if they had a chance, if they made a run and won out, they could have gotten a number 1 seed. Like,
exactly, it's very possible.
Illinois could have made it so impossible. But
yeah,
if they had won out, there was a chance that they could have gotten a 1 seed.
Yeah, you can apply some pressure, but that's not the case now.
Yeah. So obviously we discussed West Virginia here first because we have a former West Virginia player on the podcast. So it only makes sense to talk about them first. But I think you have to give just an unbelievable amount of credit to Mike Boynton and the job that he's done with that team. The fact that you can go without Cade Cunningham and Ice Likely in a game on the road against a top 10 team and go out and win that game and have a guy whose career high was 17 points go and drop 31 and have your role players step up and make big shots and make big plays. And most importantly, be ready for the moment. Like to me, that was the thing that really stood out. Like I don't think I was ever going to, like, I'm not going to doubt like whether or not a Mike Boynton team is going to show up ready to play at this point. You just kind of accept that, yes, they're going to be ready to play. I'm not going to doubt whether or not Mike's going to come up with a good game plan, because like at this point, you just kind of accept that he's going to do something smart. And the smart thing he did against West Virginia was just go to a matchup zone that really seemed to kind of take them out of their rhythm and frustrate them. Like it felt like they got a lot more stuff out of transition than they did. If Oklahoma State kept them in the half court, West Virginia looked like they were going to have trouble scoring every possession. That Oklahoma State did that. So you got to give Mike Boynton credit there. You just, at this point, I've come to expect it from him. But the fact that he had guys that had never been in that moment,
facts,
that were ready to step up and thrive in that moment, like that's impressive to me, man. Like Avery Anderson coming out and putting up 31, like that is really impressive. And another thing that really stood out, and I don't know if you picked up on this, but on the bench during that game, Cade Cunningham was going nuts. Yeah, like he was celebrating like he was a walk-on for every play. Like he was doing like the three goggles and like all the celebrations that you would expect, like the guy that's just there to help bring the team's GPA up, like to be doing. Like he was doing all that stuff. And like I know he's a one and done, but I just love the fact that he has fully bought in to like the student athlete experience and to the being a college basketball player. And like, I'm an Oklahoma State Cowboy through and through. Even I'm going to be here for 10 months, but I am an Oklahoma State Cowboy through and through. And like, it's fun to see a kid like have that much fun playing. Right. And even when he's not playing, because there's a lot of guys where if you're out, right, and your team goes on to win, there are going to be people that say like, well, why are they looking better without you? What's the problem? Why is this happening? We saw it happen with Ayo. Ayo went out and everyone was like, well, maybe they should be playing Andre Curbelo more minutes. Like, no, they just happen to have a really good game plan on a night where Michigan didn't play well. Ayo happened to be out. So to see him celebrate the way he did was awesome. And I was texting with Mike after the game, and he was like, I said to him, I was like, I loved seeing the way that Cade celebrated. And he basically said like, he's the best teammate like that you can ask for. He takes pride in being unselfish. That's what Mike said. He takes pride in being called unselfish. And you can see that like, he's just a winner that is fully bought in. And when your star is fully bought in like that, I think it lifts everybody else up in the program. And the last thing on my rant before I let you say something about Oklahoma State is that I made this point a couple times, but the analytically inclined will tell you that when you win a whole bunch of close games like this, like there's an element of luck that's involved, right? When you win a bunch of games on buzzer beaters, like eventually those buzzer beaters are going to stop going in. Like you can't. You expect to hit a buzzer beater, what, like 40% of the time, something like that. Let's just say 40%. You hit 3 in a row. Well, the next one, you're still going to have a 40% chance of hitting it. So over time, that's going to end up evening out, and you're probably not quite as good as what your record is going to say. Well, to me, Oklahoma State, the fact that they've been in all these close games, they're battle tested, they're confident in those moments, and they have probably the best closer, maybe the second best closer to Ayo in all of college basketball, and Cade Cunningham. So I'm fully bought in on this. Like I legitimately think that Oklahoma State is a team that can get to a Final Four. Maybe I'm just overstating it. Maybe I'm just caught up in the moment, but I think that this is a team that can get to a Final Four.
I don't know about the Final Four, but I'm kind of bought in on Oklahoma State as well. Just looking back to when we first started talking about teams in the preseason, this team was picked 7th in the Big 12 due to losing a bunch of players, having a bunch of guys who've never been there before, like we just said. And I mean, they had NCAA stuff looming over their head as well. So you have to think like everybody from the beginning of the season till now has counted them out until obviously we get to mid-season and everybody sees how well they start doing and they get, I don't want to say bandwagon, but people start to pay attention a little bit more. Like this team was picked to finish 7th, and they're supposed to be like one of these teams that you can walk on in the conference, but instead they turned themselves into a team that made the conference even stronger this year, adding another Big 12 team to the NCAA tournament. Like, Wiggins has done a great job. And just even watching this past game against WVU, and you can tell, like, these are scenarios where you lose two of your best players, where guys are looking forward to stepping up. Some people don't. These guys stepped up big time. Won their fourth or fifth ranked game, like in the last, like, out of 6 games played. Like, I feel like this is a very good team. This is a team that can cause a ton of mismatches in the tournament, Big 12 and in the NCAA. Like, they're not very big, but they're scrappy. They play hard, and they got one of the best players in the country on their team. So I can't really count them out of a Final Four. I don't see it. I think I can see them Sweet 16, possible Elite 8, depending on their matchup. But, like, when you have one of the best players in the country on your team, the number 1 draft pick, basically, it's like, it's nothing that's not possible with Cade in the court.
And look, the knock on them all year has been where's their supporting cast? Well,
yeah,
Avery Anderson, if you need to, can go for 31. Ice Likely has played for the USA national teams before. The Boone brothers, like, I'm not even going to bother trying to keep them straight because I am never going to be able to. Like, the Champagnes, like, I'm never going to be able to keep them straight. So I'm just not even going to bother trying. But the Boone brothers were really good. But, like, the guy that's the big guy was really good in the paint, and the guy that shoots threes, the Boone that shoots threes, made a bunch of threes. Like, what else can you ask for?
Moncrief had a good game.
Up, like, and
Matt
again,
like, they had a lot of guys that did well, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's big. That's really, really big. So when you have the best player on the floor, you got a bunch of role guys that can step up and thrive in the moment, and you're battle tested. Like, they've played 4 overtime games, right? 4 of their 7 losses have been by 1 possession. All they do is play close games. I swear,
exactly.
Every time an Oklahoma State game is on and I flip to it in the last 5 minutes, like, it's close. Every single one. Every single time I've watched them. So,
and that's a skill in itself, man. That's a skill in itself. Being able to win close games, or like know that when you're in close games, like, we definitely still have a chance to win. And some teams can't even do that. When they get
so
down.
How much? I mean, you've experienced this. Like, how much of that is confidence? How much of that is belief and execution? How much of that is coaching? Like, where does that come from?
Honestly, I feel like it's all of those things you just mentioned in one. I mean, you got to see it happen once to believe it, and then once you see it, then you have faith in that. And if you were to get down, that you can come back. And obviously coaching comes into effect as well, depending on, like, how much your coach stresses, how much he believes in you, and feels that you guys can do those things. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, just seeing it is believing. It just takes, and they've had that opportunity this season to see it, and they know they're right there, and they can beat any team coming back, being up or being down. It's either or for them.
Yeah. Before we talk about Illinois, let me just let you guys know a little bit about our partners over at BetRivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up with BetRivers yet, now's the time. BetRivers Sportsbook is offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit with the code 250match. But what sets them apart is that they require just 1 playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. When you win at BetRivers, they pay fast, and now it's even faster with Rush Pay, instant approval for withdrawals. It's safe, it's secure, it's reliable. I know because I use them. And with March Madness right around the corner, there's never been a better time to give BetRivers Sportsbook a try. So go to betrivers.com today or download the BetRivers iOS app. You must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. I also want to let you guys know a little bit about a new campaign that we're working on with Manscaped. It's called We Save Balls. I don't have the t-shirt on right now. I wore it during Thursday's live stream, and then I put it in the laundry, and my laundry is literally in the washing machine right now. So I'm not going to go take it out just to put it on for this campaign. But what Manscaped is doing over the course of the next 3 weeks during March Madness, any money that is used or any money that is spent on any of their products, a percentage of that is going to go to the Testicular Cancer Society. And they're trying to raise money for testicular cancer. I mean, what more is there to say about that? So where we come in is that if you use the promo code FIELD, you're going to be able to get 20% off and you're going to be able to get free shipping. So not only are you going to be getting a discount on their products, but you're also going to be able to have some of that money go to a good cause, to fight cancer, to fight testicular cancer, which is the most common form of cancer in men ages to 18 to 34. The other part of it, and the reason why we're supposed to wear the We Save Balls shirts that I don't have on right now, that is in my washing machine, is because it's supposed to be a reminder. It's supposed to let you know, if you are a man and you are listening to this, check your balls. Make sure you don't have any lumps. If you are a woman and you are listening to this, go tell your man to check his balls and make sure he doesn't have any lumps. And also, like, look, the Manscaped products, they are good. I'm not going to sit here and pitch them to you too hard because, I mean, this is not necessarily about just selling the product. It's about making sure you check your balls to make sure you don't have any lumps in them. But the Lawnmower 3.0 and the Perfect Package 3.0, they're products that I use. They work well. And I'll tell you what, my wife is relatively satisfied now. She said I look a lot relatively. I was gonna make a joke, but we probably have some younger listeners that I'm not gonna make. But yeah, trust me when I say that they are good products. They work well. They don't clip anything. They don't nick anything. You don't end up bleeding anywhere. And the Lawnmower 3.0, it does work in the shower. And it does have a light, which is actually really effective at being able to get a closer and more precise trim if you need to. And the other, the crop reviver and the crop preserver, they have things to help you. One of the biggest issues that I have today, I don't know if you have this problem. During the summer, I'm outside all the time with my kids. And normally, since I have a 2-year-old daughter, that means I'm walking along. And one of the biggest problems when you're walking along and it gets a little hot out and it gets a little sweaty is the chafage and the junk sticking to your leg. And they have products that can help you with that in the Perfect Package 3.0. So
they've thought of it all.
Yeah. Go to manscaped.com, use the promo code FIELD, get 20% off, get free shipping, and have a portion of the proceeds go to the Testicular Cancer Society. There's no downside. So just do it. Use our promo code. Help us out. Help support the network. It's all good. Day. Let's get into Ayo Dosunmu's performance at Ohio State. Best closer in the country. Best masked player in the country. Is he officially Batman now after coming out in that black mask? That was awesome. That thing was awesome.
Now, I remember right before the game starts, and my wife was like, "Is he playing?" I didn't think he was going to play, and I was like, "Yeah, they said he was playing today." And just prepping for, like, watching them prepare for the game. I was excited. I thought it was going to be a good game, and I mean, he didn't disappoint from beginning to end. He was who he thought he was. So,
yes.
So yeah, man. Like, shout out to Illinois State. I said Illinois State. Excuse me. Shout out to Illinois. They're a team I feel like can go to the Final Four. I mean, that's just their style of play and their star power with Ayo and Kofi. Obviously, Kofi didn't. He played well, but he didn't like go to his normal double status. But I mean, I think these guys could be a very, very big problem, especially since they're starting to gel. And now that these the other guys, like the supporting cast, had an opportunity to like show off their talent and boost their confidence before conference tournament play. I mean, I feel like that was a good thing for them. Like, it's a good thing for Illinois to take into the deep into the tournament, hopefully.
Yeah. So my big thing with them is that I kind of expected when Ayo was out that like Adam Miller would be the guy that would step up for him.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that's who it would end up being. And it wasn't. It was Andre Curbelo. And over the course of the last 4 games, he's averaged 15.8 points, 7.5 boards, and 4.8 assists, which is pretty damn good. And what that means is that now they can go with like these two point guard looks. And for me, like in the last 10 years, I went on this rant the other day, but in the last 10 years, 8 of the 10 teams that won the national title had 2 point guards. Whether it was like Russ Smith and Peyton Siva or Shabazz and Kemba Walker or Shabazz and Ryan Boatwright, like they've had 2 point guards. Ty Jerome and Kihei Clark won it in 2019. So the only teams that didn't were the Villanova team in 2018 that had Jalen Brunson and like 3 other combos on the floor with him.
Yeah, exactly.
And 2012 Kentucky with Anthony Davis and Michael K. Gilbert. So now you can play Andre Curbelo and Ayo Dosunmu together. and that just gives you a like completely different look. And I think that takes some of the onus on Ayo to be the sole creator, because the one thing that, like, he's really, really good, but the one thing about him is he's a little bit predictable because he's kind of right hand dominant, and you kind of know what Illinois wants to get him, the action they want to get him into. So having another guy on the floor that can take some of that playmaking responsibility away from him, especially when they're as good as Andre is, that's huge. That's huge. So let me ask you this: when you have those 2 point guards together, or those two playmakers, like, why does that have such an impact on a basketball team in a basketball game?
Well, speaking strictly on Illinois, I mean, thinking about Ayo's game, he's amazing in transition, like I say all the time. And teams, like you say, he can tend to get a little predictable. And I felt like one of the things that Illinois was missing was more like another point guard who can, like, just looking at their team, Andre aside, their team is missing somebody that can get into the half court and create and make plays for other people as well. Two guard teams usually do well just because if you have 2 point guards on the floor, I mean, you have double the opportunity for somebody that leads the floor, leads the team to set up plays for everybody. So I like you brought up Payne Stever, who's a great point guard, and Russ Smith. Like, that was a great example of like 2 point guard teams where you could put the ball in one of those two guys' hands and something good will happen, whether they find their own shot because they were good enough scorers or they find a shot for someone else. Andre is creative enough to find his own shots. He's also creative enough to find shots for other guys. And the way that Ayo is in transition, I mean, it's almost like they can take care of both. It's like the James Harden, Russell Westbrook grin. I hope it works out a little bit better. But, you know, Russ is amazing in transition. And then you get the ball in James's hands, and then you have half court, pick and roll, and things of that nature. I can see that dynamic almost in a sense with these two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's it makes them better.
Yeah.
Makes them better.
Basically,
yeah.
Man.
The last thing I do want to say about this game is that Dwayne Washington completely shot Ohio State out of it. I thought that they were in a great position to win. He missed. I just counted it out. He missed his last 7 shots of the game.
That's tough.
Last 7 shots of the game. 5 of them came in the final 4 minutes after they had gone up 68-64. He missed 3 shots, all bad shots, by the way, in the next minute and 15 seconds after they took a 4-point lead, and they never scored again. They went up 68-64 with 4 minutes left, and Dwayne Washington shot him out of the game. Against Michigan earlier this year, he had made the bad decision to go double somebody at the wrong time.
Yes.
And got beat by off the dribble. Like, he's such a talented player. And I remember Chris Holtman telling Jeff Goodman and Robbie Hubbell this earlier this year that there are times where he is like, before the game starts, he says, I love you. During the game, they have a lot of what Chris Holtman said was hard conversations. After the game, they say, I love you again. So it's worrisome. You know, we said it on the Why Your Team Sucks podcast. One of our biggest concerns is what Dwayne Washington is going to do. And that kind of came to fruition again.
Well, like we did say during that pod, it's just the way their team is set up. I mean, if Sewing's not playing well and CJ is like playing okay, it's going to be dependent on EJ and it's going to be dependent on Dwayne. And Dwayne was kind of in a scenario where we put Mac McClung early, where he's just going to be a volume shooter. Mm-hmm. He could get in. The thing is, his best games aren't really him getting volume shots up like that. But he can tend to just get a lot of them up at the wrong times, and it doesn't work well for them, especially. I mean, the last 3 games, I mean, great, he's had decent scoring games, but he also shoots the ball in inopportune times, and it puts them in terrible situations in the game.
Yep. All right. Is there anything else from this weekend that you want to mention?
This weekend?
Nothing about UConn peaking at the right time?
I feel like UConn's peaking at a time where Villanova loses a guard and all these things going on with Creighton. It's just like, I feel like everything is looking great for UConn right now.
Everything is coming up UConn
it's
right
just
now.
coming up UConn.
If UConn goes on another run in March, I'm going to be miserable to deal with.
First and foremost, when you said that, so we're in the chat yesterday, and Rob names the 3 Final Four teams, and he names UConn as the 4th number 1 seed, and no one said anything, and I literally thought I was in an alternate reality for a second. I was like, wait, why is no one saying anything? No one's addressing this.
They just know at this point.
But look at what's happening. I don't think they're going to be a 1 seed, of course, but just to see them starting to turn things around after the absolute long pause period they had early in the season, and coming out losing their first game the way they lost it, and then just being up and down. Book Knight being injured, coming back. Now looking at this team, having an opportunity to make some noise late in the year.
Yep. They're peaking at the right time, man. That's what you got to do. Exactly. All right, we're going to do some postseason awards, and then some things that we're really looking forward to heading down the stretch of the season. So I'm guessing that your player of the year, who's your player of the year right now?
I got to just go with Ayo. Going with Ayo. I had a 3-way with it was a 3-way decision with Ayo, Luka, and I was really big on Jared Butler, but I just decided I'm going with Ayo.
Yeah, it's close. I think it's way closer than anyone is going to say that it is. I've come around on Luka. He's everything for that team. Everything that they do has to run through him offensively. He doesn't average a ton of assists, but he is the creative outlet, because they have to get him the touches to be able to get shots for everybody else. If he's not getting touches and forcing those double teams, where's their offense coming from, especially with Jack Nungy out? So it's tough, man.
Did you see their first half? Their first half, they guard a little bit, by the way.
Yeah,
they guarded a little bit, by the
way. He's gotten better on that end. He's not terrible. He's not good.
We're not gonna. Let's just stop.
He's not good, but all things considered, he has improved, and as he has gotten better, the rest of the Iowa team has gotten better. And when you have, I don't want to say a guy that can erase mistakes, but when you have a guy that can be functional guarding ball screens, that you don't have to hide in the zone, and that just makes you so much it's so much easier to play man to man if you're not this freak athletic team, right? Yeah. So, yeah, him getting better defensively is a significant reason why they have been playing better down the stretch of the season. Now, why I thought we were going to get a Fran fade, but we are not getting a Fran fade. They played really well down the stretch. All right, National Coach of the Year. Who are you going with?
National Coach of the Year. If I can't go Bob Huggins, of course, I'm going to go with Juwan Howard. Juwan Howard should get National Coach of the Year. First season on deck. I feel like Juwan just did a great job this year, man.
Yeah, he did. He
just did an absolute phenomenal job. His team is a good team overall, where, most teams in the country, if you take away Baylor and Gonzaga, are, 1 or 2 guys, or they do a pretty good job of scoring as a unit. His team does a lot of things really well. Now they're going through a little rough stretch right now, but it comes with the conference. It's a really good conference, so it is what it is. But Juwan Howard definitely should be getting Coach of the Year, I think.
Yeah, it's tough to argue against him. I would personally go with. I feel like every year, Coach of the Year ends up going to the team that outperforms expectations the most.
Underdog, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes I think that the ability to live up to the expectations that you have is one of the hardest things to do. And I think that both Scott Drew and Mark Few have done that this season. I would tend to lean towards Scott Drew, because I think that his team has been through a little bit more. They're heading into March with a 20 and whatever and 1 record, despite the fact that they've had 2 different they had a pause and a shutdown for 3 weeks. It took their legs out from underneath them, and they're fully back. Macy OT went full Steph Curry, and now they're fully back. So I would probably lean Scott Drew. I got Steph Curry on the mind.
Yeah, facts.
I would probably lean Scott Drew over Mark Few and Juwan Howard, and like guys like Nate Oates and Brad Underwood. Like there's probably a dozen guys that deserve mention. So please don't yell at us if I didn't mention your team. I think that I would probably lean Scott Drew over Mark Few and Juwan Howard right now. But I think those are the top three. Probably.
But not to mention, Scott Drew just won his second year without losing a home game just there. Is it the third year?
And they won. He won the Big 12 at Baylor.
That's not. Hey, I was talking to my wife. I was like, I don't know many people that wanted to go to Waco at one point in time.
He won the Big 12 at Baylor.
He turned that place around, man. So
Waco is no longer known for like the Waco, right? It's also the way the Baylor basketball program is no longer known for the shit that happened with Dave Bliss and Brian Dennehy.
Yeah, facts.
Like I don't think.
That was not a good. That was not a high destination for many people.
No, like I don't think people realize how bad that program was. They had not won a league title since 1950, Da'Sean. 1950, when Jeff Goodman was 4 years old, was the last time that they won a conference title.
You didn't have to kill Jeff like that. Now he's definitely got to hear that. That's tough.
Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, look, the job he's done, and we could probably do an entire podcast on the job he's done there. But the fact that he made Baylor into the program that it is unbelievable. I would say that I don't know how many, like people keep calling it a rebuilding job. It's not a rebuilding job. It's a building job. There was nothing there before. It's like, no, I'm serious. Like there was nothing there. And I would probably put Arizona slightly above what Scott Drew's done because Arizona A, won a title, and B, Lute Olson, like after he left, it's sustained, right?
Yeah.
I would probably put UConn slightly above it too because Jim Calhoun like took over and they went from being a complete non-entity to being a program that won 4 national titles in 15 years. Who does that?
Nobody.
Duke doesn't even win 4 titles in 15 years. And UConn did it. UConn in Storrs, Connecticut. You've been to Storrs.
Yeah.
You know what they got in Storrs?
I didn't see anything.
They got a lot of I don't know if I want to say what I was about to say, but let's just say that it's not the best area, and there's a lot of cows. There's a lot of cows. There's a lot of trees, and that's about it. So it's not. There's nothing there. And he turned Storrs. It's like the capital, like the basketball capital of the world. That might be exaggerating a little bit.
I was gonna say.
I mean, like I'm not. The larger point of what Jim Calhoun built at UConn into a national power, it's just like it's ridiculous. There's no reason that UConn should be good at basketball. It's not like there's good basketball players in Connecticut. Trust me, I know. I played basketball in Connecticut. We don't have a lot of good basketball players,
and that's why Scott Drew deserves. He probably does. He honestly, he what he's done this year, the past 2-3 years, has been nothing short of phenomenal. But obviously, looking at the entire scope of it, like. What kind of award would you give him? A lifetime achievement award?
Lifetime achievement. I'll tell you what. If Indiana ends up making a move on Archie Miller this year, I think my first call, if I'm Indiana, is to Scott Drew.
Yeah,
his dad played at Valpo. He's got Indiana roots. He builds programs the way that people in Indiana want to build programs. Like he's not just gonna survive on the one and dones. He's going to identify players that can fit into a culture, right? And I think that's what Indiana guys want. Like more than anything else, Indiana fans want people to play for the university that love Indiana as much as they do.
Exactly.
He obviously can coach. He can coach his ass off. And I think that he having that kind of like affable personality that can deal with being the center of attention. Like, because I mean, Indiana, it's like the same thing as Kentucky and Louisville, and like you're in a fishbowl.
Yeah,
right. Like you're the head coach of Indiana.
You're it. That's what it says.
So, the big thing is just like the level of expectation there is insane, and I'm never going to be one of these guys that says like Indiana fans should not expect a certain level of winning. But you have to go in there knowing that the fan base expects a certain level of winning. And if you're not going to get it done quick, like they're going to get you out of there. So tough job, but yeah, Scott Drew will be my first call.
I wouldn't be surprised. I would be surprised if they actually did give him a call. So,
well, my first call would be to Da'Sean Butler, but when he says, I got to pass. I got this assistant coaching gig with Wheeling University.
I can't help you guys out. I made promises.
We got everybody coming back next year, so we're gonna be all right.
If I do that, you can come here and just knock me the hell out.
All right, so let's go to let's do All Americans. I thought this was the easiest first team All American team I've ever had.
Talk to me. Let me see
what
I had. You could probably laugh at mine. You always laugh at my list anyway.
So Luka, Ayo, and Jared, I thought were just givens.
Yeah.
You have to have those three on there.
Yeah.
I thought Cade Cunningham was a pretty obvious choice. And for me, I went with Corey Kispert from Gonzaga because I just think that he's their best player. Like they're the best shooter, 3-and-D guy, senior, conference player of the year already. I went with that was my 5. And I think that like you got to get someone from Butler, you got to get someone from Gonzaga on there. I think you have to get Cade, Luka, and Ayo on there, and it all kind of worked out. So to me, like this was the easiest one I've ever had to put together. I put the least amount of thought I've ever put into an first team All American team. Second team was hard. It was really, really hard for me. First team was easy for me to do. Who'd you have first team?
Same. I had the same guys. That's what I said. I felt like the first team was pretty simple.
See, that's how you know it's easy to do. When the two of us agree on like who should be on an All-American team, like that's when you know it's easy. This
I felt like it was pretty simple.
Consensus.
Yeah. The funny thing was initially I was like tossing around with two guys. I was tossing around with for some reason I was tossing around with Evan Mobley and Cade Cunningham. And then just looking at that Oklahoma State team before, if you take Cade Cunningham off of there, it's just like, what am I talking about? Like Cade Cunningham is the first teamer. Like team.
Evan's awesome. He was the first guy on my list for the second team.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I said.
Give me your 5 for the second team because this could be interesting. I bet we're gonna have guys.
I have Marcus Carr. I have Davion Mitchell. I have Drew Timme, Kofi Cockburn, and I put Evan Mobley there. I kept 3 bigs. Like I couldn't not put Drew Timme on there. Drew Timme is played great.
Yeah, I got I got Timme on there too. I got Mobley on there too. I went with Franz Wagner.
Okay.
I love everything that he does for that team. I went with Davion Mitchell too from Baylor. Just the best defender in college basketball on ball. And he's also averaging like 15 and 6, 40%.
He's doing what I thought that Marcus Garrett should have been doing. I thought he would be more because obviously he's going to bring you one side of the basketball defensively. I thought he would, embrace the opportunity to be a scorer. But just watching Davion Mitchell this year, bro, like he's different. he competes. He's guarding the best offensive guard. And he's going at him. And you can tell, like, that's just, like, the vibe that Baylor gives off for their teams. Their guards, like, they're stacked. They're dogs, bro.
You just mentioned Marcus Garrett. What I should have done for Player of the Year is said I was giving it to David McCormick and seen what your reaction would be.
Oh, my gosh. I love Marcus Garrett this year, man. I thought Marcus Garrett was obviously they didn't finish the way I wanted him to finish. But Marcus Garrett is he's a hell of a player. And he brought that team also in the forefront where we were like kind of like pushing them off to the side early on. They were a team that looked pretty damn good mid-season.
Where do you stand on the comparisons between Davion Mitchell and Javon Carter?
What I would say is that it was similar how I figured Davion Mitchell's finishing. So like they're similar on how they finished. Like Javon coming in wasn't really known as a scorer. His effort was what he was known for. And he built himself into like an absolutely great basketball player, like worked super hard on the shooting, ball handling, getting into shots. And the defense obviously got better over the years. And he is a rare player to win Defensive Player of the Year as a guard back-to-back. So like I look at Davion Mitchell in that light where he is a guard who it wasn't necessarily known for his scoring and was more or less like he's going to be a good defender and he's going to give Jared Butler like a break from having the ball in his hands the entire time. And he went from that to the player we see now, who you can argue being a first team All-American.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Last guy on my second team All-American list. I went a little off the board with this one. I went with Chris Duarte from Oregon.
No, I mean, yeah, I remember you talked about Oregon prior.
I think Oregon's going to make a run. I think Oregon and UConn are going to be the two teams, depending on how the bracket shakes out, that I'm going to end up having, like, no matter where they get seeded, I'm going to have them in, like, the Sweet 16. I'm just going to pencil them in. And Duarte is the biggest reason why. I mean, look, Oregon has 5 losses. They won the Pac-12, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't think they won the Pac-12 outright. They have 5 losses on the season. One of them came without LJ Figueroa and without Will Richardson, who are 2 of their 3 best players. Another one of them came when Will Richardson was still out, but LJ Figueroa was playing. And 2 of those losses came when they were coming off of COVID pauses, when they didn't have their whole team available. When they're at full strength, they basically have been beaten 1 time this season. They're really, really, really good. And I think that we're going to see that come in more. Like, Dana Altman just gets teams playing the best at the end of the season. And Chris Duarte is their stud, man. He's averaging like 17 points, 4 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals, a block and a half, and shooting 40-something% from 3. Like, he is a monster. I think if I was an NBA GM, I would take him with a first-round pick. That's how highly I think of him.
I haven't got a chance to watch much of Oregon at all this season, but I remember the last time I was
on the Pac-12 network.
Yeah, man. And it's just like
all these stuff creating these new networks, and I can't watch them play anymore.
So I didn't even catch too many of their games, but just talking to you the last time, I remember we talked about how like their team has so many guys that actually can score the basketball, and that makes them that much more dangerous to guard. So like, I can't. Hopefully, they do make it pretty far in the tournament, get a good chance to watch them and see how they match up with people this year.
Yep. All right. So, last thing, 3 things we're going to do. What is what's the storyline that you're looking forward to the most coming out of championship week coming up?
I'm actually hoping that Creighton can put themselves together mentally so they can come out there and play some good basketball. I would say maybe like the last 5 or 6 games, regardless of win or lose, I was just happy with the energy they were playing with. Like that Villanova win they had earlier was like, I felt like that was something that sparked them in the right direction, especially Zagorowski and just getting going, and Ballack and these guys, just the speed, the way they shared the basketball. Like, they play together, they play hard together, they play for each other. You can see it by watching them. So I just hope they can see past one of these things that can be made into a difficult thing, especially with their coach's words and with the media all over it. If they can just keep a narrow head and just focus on the locker room and then turn this negative into a positive for a good finish for their season.
Yeah, so that's a good one. I wouldn't mind seeing Creighton make a run here and like win the Big East tournament and have some success in March. The storyline I'm looking forward to the most is just kind of like watching all the Cinderellas that happen to be like the blue bloods in the major conferences. Because I think we're going to see a lot of like low seeds make runs, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I had to pick right now, I think I might pick North Carolina to win the ACC tournament, just based off of how well they've been playing and how the bracket kind of shakes out. Michigan State, they get Maryland in the first round of the Big Ten tournament, and then they get Michigan as the 8 seed in the quarterfinals. I think they have a chance to make a run in their conference tournaments. I think UConn is primed to make a run in the Big East tournament. But if they don't, like, how about this? St. John's is the 4 seed. They play Seton Hall in the first round. You get past Seton Hall, you get Villanova in the semifinals. St. John's playing in Madison Square Garden against a Villanova team that doesn't have their 2 best point guards, assuming Justin Moore doesn't play. That's a bad matchup. How about this? The point guard, if Justin Moore doesn't play, then I think it means that Villanova is going to start Chris Arcidiacono. On Saturday against Providence, Chris Arcidiacono played 25 minutes. Prior to that game, for his entire Villanova career, which spanned 2 full seasons, do you know how many minutes he played in his entire career before Saturday's game when he had 25 minutes?
No, 25?
35 minutes. He had played 35 minutes in 2 seasons.
Jeez. So, yeah.
As Ryan Arcidiacono's brother. So, if he was good enough, Jay Wright would have put him in there because that's Ryan Arcidiacono's brother.
You never know, though. You never know. A lot of people have made their famous career. I mean, their career is a little bit hot
You know what would be
these
funny?
situations, man.
It would be funny, like if he came out here and he averaged like 16.
That's what I'm saying. Like you gotta start making fun of him. He's
That'd be a hell of a
he starts
story.
posting up. He starts doing all the things
Yeah.
that Jay Wright likes to do with the guards. So
Yeah. So Duke, I don't think Duke's gonna make a run. I just whatever. But what I'm really hoping for today, and what I think would be the best storyline in the history of storylines in championship week, is if Kentucky can make a run and win the SEC tournament.
if that would be interesting, actually.
I really want that to happen.
After the season they've had, like I feel like you couldn't take the shit eating grin off of Cal's face at that.
Oh, man, it would be great. Like it would be so
sit there and just.
It would be because here's the thing: if they make a run and they win the SEC tournament and they get the automatic bid, they're going to end up with like a 13 seed or something. And I think Cal, you know how Cal every year always has some kind of problem with where they're seated.
Yeah,
always has to say something about
say
it.
A damn thing.
Argument about why they should have been. Oh, it'd be epic! Like I want nothing more than for Kentucky to make a run and win the SEC tournament. And look, you know,
that put a big ass smile on my face just thinking about that.
Great. All right, so who's the guy that's going to be the breakout star for you during conference tournament week?
Breakout star, I feel like Ayo getting back for the Big Ten tournament. He had a solid game recently. I feel like he's just going to have an amazing finish to the season. I mean, for them to go to the Final Four like they're picked to go, they got to go through him, and I can't foresee many teams. The Big Ten is a tough conference. I can't foresee many teams throughout the NCAA being able to keep up with the pace that Illinois runs with.
Yeah,
I just can't foresee it. They're big. They run their bigs run. All the guards can handle the ball, find their shot a little bit, and they're doing a little bit better toward the end of the season. The supporting cast, and then you have this guy that's running who has the opportunity to win Player of the Year, who's like getting almost 20 a game, 7 boards and 4 or 5 assists. Like, I don't know many teams that are going to be able to stop Ayo, and I don't know many teams that are going to be able to match up physically on the perimeter with Illinois.
So I went with Moses Moody from Arkansas, and here's why. He's averaging.
You gave in.
No, like I'm just joking. So the reference that they make for people that don't know is that when we did the Why Your Team Sucks podcast, and I posted the clip of the Arkansas section onto Twitter, and Arkansas fans did not get the joke. They did not understand the bit. They were like, "Oh, why do these guys hate Arkansas so much?" Yeah. They did not understand the bit at all.
I know they didn't understand the bit, and I get it because I kind of didn't articulate my point even that much better either. They were livid.
It was hilarious, but it's not like we funny. Said.
You initiated that. You initiated in the very beginning saying this is why your team won't win a championship this year. We all know these teams don't suck because that was the thing. It was like everyone always talks about why these teams are so great. So we're going to talk about what makes them bad and why they're vulnerable. And honestly, it's valuable information if you want, like for when you're filling out a bracket. But Arkansas fans were just like, "Oh, they're hating. Oh, it's clickbait." First of all, in 2021, it's tap bait and it's view bait. Like that's all we want. And I stand by what I said, especially like everything I said was for a reason. Maybe I didn't articulate it properly, but I could go on about it a little bit. Like I was livid at first. When I first looked at it, then I was like, wait a minute, these people they're really angry. Let me chill out. And I was like,
the funniest part about it to me was they were like, we have the biggest lineup on KenPom. And I'm like, well, yeah, you got some tall guys that sit on your bench. But when it comes down to it, in crunch time, you have a 6'1" dude that at the point, you got a 6'2" guy on the wing, you got a couple of 6'6" players on that play the 3 and the 4, and you have 6'7" Justin Smith playing the 5.
Yeah, that's how hangs out, and they hang out in the 2-3. He doesn't step up the hedge, and that's how they played. And they were like, "Oh, we're leading and rebounding in the league." And I was like, "Well, I'm pretty sure I said that I was very down on the SEC this year because the teams that they lost to blasted them on the boards." Like blasted them. Even the teams that they played Kentucky and beat Kentucky, and Kentucky blasted them on the boards. They played against Oklahoma State, who is by far small basketball, blasted them on the boards. And then they're like, yeah, we averaged the most assists and had the least turnovers. And I was like, yeah, but I look at your assist to turnover ratio in the league, it's 1.2. So it's not like you guys are just whipping the ball around, knocking down all these shots. It's, you have a really good basketball player and you guys take advantage of the mismatches you have. You do a great job. They're a good team. But I just didn't make up the it's like I didn't make it up. One assist to one turnover is not good passing.
Hey, look, I'll tell you what. Guys. As you get further into these content streets, you're gonna realize that fans they don't want to hear anything you have to say. Especially when you frame it as this is why Arkansas sucks and they don't like the bit. Anyway, so Moses Moody averaging 17 points a game for a top 15 team that just finished second in the SEC, and he's going to be a lottery pick. And it feels like nobody talks about him, right? It feels like he's barely a part of the conversation. He's gone for 28 points in each of his last 2 games. He hit the game-winning shot, the go-ahead shot against Texas A&M on Saturday to keep them from losing that game. So if Arkansas goes on to win the SEC tournament, which it's something that's very possible, they're playing the best basketball in that conference right now, then I think it'll be because Moses Moody goes nuts. And if Moses Moody goes nuts and they win the SEC tournament, then I feel like all of a sudden everyone's going to be like, oh, you know what? This guy at Arkansas is pretty good. So that's why I went with him as the breakout star. I feel like this is going to be when everyone is kind of realizes just how good that dude is. Because he's really good. I think he's going to play in the NBA as a 3-and-D wing for 12 to 14 years.
He's very talented. Once again, I feel like we talked about with the SEC, it's just they have a lot of guys that are very talented, but the teams aren't necessarily as great when you go through the entire league. There are probably 3 or 4 teams that are pretty damn good. They can go to other league, basically other conferences and play their teams and hold their own, and then the rest of the conference doesn't. So it was just, you kind of feel like you get boasted numbers when you see some of these guys, but he can definitely go for sure.
Yep. All right. Bold prediction time, then we're going to get out of here. What is your bold prediction for championship week?
Kansas versus West Virginia in the Big 12 championship.
That's your bold prediction? Mine's kind of similar. I said that 2 of Gonzaga, Baylor, and Michigan are going to lose during their conference tournament.
I also have UConn versus Creighton in the Big East final.
Well, UConn's going to win the Big East tournament, so you're not really going out on the limb.
So that's a waste. And Michigan,
UConn can't play Creighton because they're the 2 and the 3 seed.
I thought they were on opposites.
No,
I thought Creighton was with what's the name, with Villanova.
No, Creighton. Yeah, Creighton's a 2 and a 3 seed.
Oh, so never mind.
You should have just gone with UConn winning the Big East tournament because that's what's going to happen.
I'll stick with my Kansas versus West Virginia Big 12 championship. I got a feeling Baylor might just take it easy.
I like how it's make a bold prediction. You're like, yeah, my Mountaineers are gonna win, and I'm like, yeah, my Huskies are gonna win. That's what,
so bold.
Really going out on a limb, Dave.
On a limb there.
Really going out on a limb.
Hey, you gotta go with what you trust, man. You gotta go with what you know. So.
Exactly. All right, man. Well, listen, this was fun. Everybody, we will see you again Thursday night for the Beers and Ball live stream. We'll find something fun to do with that. We got to figure out a bit to do with that one. Maybe we'll get more. Maybe bring some Arkansas fans on the podcast and tell us about how much they watch their team play. Until then, you guys have a great week.